What's going on, guys? Abraham here, coming at you with another video. And in this video, I want to bring you guys something a little bit different. This is more of a tutorial or a walkthrough to show you guys how you can get great graphics at your local church. When you look at other churches and their streaming videos, how, for example, Elevation or Hillsong or Planet Shakers or any of these big churches do their online streams, one thing that you see pretty much across the board with these churches is that they have beautiful, beautiful graphics. Now, this is something that you guys can achieve at your own church, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, let me show you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. Here are some examples of what the lower thirds look like on church streams. So as you can see here, they range from the names of pastors, they range from maybe a social media shout out, or maybe the verse that they're going to read for the time of preaching. There's many different kinds of lower thirds that are out there. And in this video, I'm going to show you guys how you can create your own lower thirds that resemble some of these that I just showed you and from other big churches, and some of the techniques that you can apply on your own, and you can get as creative as you want. So if you want to make something different than what I'm going to show you today, you can. But in this video, we'll have all the tools that you're going to need to make something really cool that you'll be proud of and that your congregation will be proud of as well. So let's get into it. I'm going to jump over here onto my computer, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put on these glasses, because without these glasses I can't see anything, and we're going to open up Photoshop. So I have this session already open here, and you can see the lower third right here on this bottom left corner. So this is the one that I made for my church right here. I have follow us on our social media, and then it says Vine Church SJ, because that's pretty much, you can find us anywhere on Facebook, Twitter, wherever it is, Vine Church SJ. And then I have our logo right here. So as you can see, this lower third comes down from left to right. It comes down this way, and behind this logo, it cuts at an angle, and then it cuts at another angle down here. So on this side, I'm going to open these up, and these are all the folders that contain all the layers that make up this lower third. Now, as you can see, it's not too many, it's not a lot. This is a pretty simple lower third, but as I said, you guys can get as creative as you want with this, right? So I'm just going to walk you pretty much through the process of how to make this from scratch. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a new canvas. So I'm going to do Command N on Photoshop on a Mac. On Windows, I'm not sure what the command is, but you can always go to File and then New. So here it's Command N, but for Windows it might be different. And then we're going to title this Church Lower Third Tutorial. That's what I'm going to title it. And another very important thing is the canvas size. You want to make sure that it's the same size as whatever your streaming size is. So for example, at our church, we stream in 1080p, which means that our canvas size is 1920 by 1080. Some churches I know stream in 720p, which the canvas size would be 1280 by 720. So depending on whatever you stream, that's what I would recommend you make the canvas size. And I'll show you guys why in just a second. But we'll come back over here, canvas size. Resolution I put at 300 pixels per inch, color mode 16 bits, and I leave everything else the same. We're going to click OK. So now we have this canvas. I'm going to zoom in right here just to make it a little bit bigger, and double click this just to unlock it, and we'll leave that there. Okay, so now we have a blank canvas. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this Finder window, and in here I have on my desktop a folder that says Church Lower Thirds. It's just for this video, and I have a couple things. One, I have an abstract background, which is, as you can see in here, it's the same background that I'm using for this lower third, right? So that's what we're going to use on this new one. So we open that up. It says abstract background. Then I have two screenshots. One that says pastor screenshot. That's my pastor, or also my dad, but he's my pastor as well. So I have a screenshot of our online video service, and then I have another screenshot of me playing the guitar, just so that we can test and make sure that these lower thirds look good. Then I have this lower third, which is the file that you guys already saw. So what I recommend you do is I recommend you go online, you go to your Facebook page or YouTube page, wherever it is that you have your online streams. And I suggest that you just pause on the video, somewhere in the video, and take a screenshot of, a frame of the video. The reason I do that is because whatever lower third you're making, you need to make sure that one, the size is going to look good when it's, when you display it live. And the second thing is you want to make sure that the colors, that everything just looks good with your set, with your church, with your background. It just has to look good overall, right? You don't want to create something that might look good on the computer, but then once you, put it on top of your video, it might not look so good. So I recommend that you take a screenshot, and that's what I did here. So first thing, I'm going to drag and drop this screenshot here. This is a screenshot of my dad preaching, and then I'm going to drag and drop a screenshot of me playing the guitar. So now we have two screenshots kind of to reference. I'll delete this bottom layer, and I'm going to put them in a folder called, we're going to call it screenshots. Again, I try to keep this as organized as possible because if you have volunteers or other people working on this stuff later, very important that, it's easy for them to edit. So now that we have this, we have kind of a foundation to see what the lower third is going to look like in real life. So I'll use my dad since we're going to do this lower third here. And the one that we're going to create, again, we're going to remake the one I already made before this video, which is this follow us on social media. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this here real quick. I'm going to save it as a PNG, and then we'll do lower third one just so I know what it's called. And we'll click save. Boom. And now I'm just going to drag it in just so that I can reference it in this frame too. So the first thing that I did is I took this lasso tool. If you right click on it, on this section right here, if you right click, you'll find this Polygon lasso tool. So it's the second one. The first one's lasso, the second one's third one's magnetic, but the middle one is Polygon lasso. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click a little bit off of the canvas, and I'm just going to drag over here to maybe around here. And then I'm going to make another cut down here at an angle. So we'll just do a little bit different than what we actually did there. And then I'm going to click all the way to the bottom and drag off of the canvas as well. What we're doing here is we're just creating the basic shape. So I come back over here and we'll just complete it. So now, after I complete the selection, you can see that we have this selection that's moving around, these little lines that are little dots that are moving around. That lets you know that something is selected. So now what we're going to do is pretend that we don't have this here. Again, you can create any shape. So I'm just going off of what I had already made, but you can make any shape that you want. You can make it as elaborate or as simple as you want. You can just make a square, you can make a rectangle, whatever that you want to do. This is what you can do, right? So I have this shape right here. I'm going to make a new layer on the bottom, and I'm going to select with G, I'm going to select the little paint bucket, and I'm just going to pick this color. Let's see. Yeah, this is a good color. Just a color that's vibrant and that stands out from everything else. So I just fill it in by clicking right there. I'm going to click M to click selection and then just click off. So now we have this shape. When I turn off the layer and turn it back on, you see that we have this shape here. So far doesn't look very nice, but we're going to get into it. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to add the actual background, because obviously we don't want to leave that color there. And for that, I'm going to go over here and select this background layer, and I'm just going to drag it onto here. So now we have our background layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it over the image itself. So you can use any image. I like this one because it was abstract. It has different colors, and I just feel that it would look cool with text over it, right? So let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to use more of this darker section here and just a little bit of the blue so that it does look still looks good. We'll click enter. So now it's off to the side, but what's most important is that it's covering the bottom layer. So what you're going to do is you're going to click option right here, and you're going to select between these two layers. So when you click option, this little thing comes up. It's a little arrow pointing down. What it's saying is that it's going to clip the top layer, that abstract background, to the bottom layer that's right now called layer 1, but we'll rename it. We click it. And so now what happens over here, as you can see, is it's only masking that section that we created. So from that original shape that we made, it's just masking that top layer onto it. So you can now from here you can click Command T and kind of just move this around wherever you want. I think that looks pretty cool there. Let's leave that right there. Perfect. So now we have these two things. I'm going to rename this and call it actual layer. So just so that I know that this is the actual layer on the bottom, right? And then we have abstract background. Perfect. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Now it looks a little bit better. Now from here, what I want to do is, to me, this looks good, but I think with, if you can see what this one looked like, it was a little bit more vibrant and a little darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a curves layer, and I'm just going to bring this down, bring this back to the middle. What I'm doing is creating a sort of S shape so that it darkens the image. Now, as you can see right now, it's affecting everything, right? So it's even affecting this image of my dad or my pastor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on normal and then change it to luminosity, because all I want to affect is just the darkness and the light, not really the colors. And then again, we're going to do the option key and click in between these two layers. So now it's again only affecting this portion right here, because that's what we're telling it to affect, right? So it's just going to affect that portion there. Now that's a little too dark for me, so I'm going to bring it down. Let me see, maybe around 70. You can click on and off to kind of see. Yeah, that looks good to me. And then one more thing that I remember that I did was that I went over here and I went to color lookup. So on color lookup, I went to strip, and as you can see now, it looks, it's just taking those two tones. But the reason that I'm doing this is because I don't want too much color in this bottom lower third. So once it's done, and I clipped it to, again, the same way that I clipped these other ones. I'm just gonna drop the opacity a little bit, because we want it to affect it, but not too much. Around 27, I think 27 is okay. 25, I think 25 is good. Again, I'm just going to do this kind of quick, but you can make it as complex and as detailed as you want. So for now, we're just going to leave 22. Yeah, I'm happy with 22. All right, so that looks better. At any given time, you can select these layers off to see what you had started with, and see what you've progressed or what you've done. So now that I'm happy with this, I'm going to select all three of them, and actually all four of these, and I'm going to drag them over to the folder, make a new folder, and we're going to call this lower third BG. So lower third background. Now we know that that's the background, right? So let me go back over here. Let's see. This. Okay, so it looks like we had these colors, and then we had the text, and then a @VineChurchSJ, and then our logo. Okay, so far so good. The only thing that we really have left is to create all of these this text and add these graphics. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to make or remake this little kind of divider. I think it just looks cool. So I just have that layer selected, and I'm gonna change my color to white, and I'm gonna fill it in. But first I need to add a new layer, fill it in, boom. Okay, so now we have our nice little divider. Very good. And then I'm gonna come over here, and I'm gonna create the Vine Church SJ. So I'm using Avenir Black Oblique. Again, you can use whatever text, whatever font you desire, but I'm gonna do @Vine, I think I did it lower, Vine Church SJ. And we drag this over here. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then on this side, I had typed follow us on our social, I believe. So we'll do follow. I'm just gonna do it actually all caps. Follow us. That did not work. Caps locks did not work that time for me. There we go. Follow us. And we'll drag this to the side. We'll adjust the sizing right now on our, and then social. Perfect. Okay, looks good. We're looking good. So we're gonna drop the size of this to, let's say 9. I think 9 should be good. And then on our social, we'll drop this also to 9, and we'll also drop this to 9. So once that's good, I'm gonna drag now and adjust this over here, follow us, and then make sure that this lines up on our, and finally social, also make sure that it lines it up. What's cool about Photoshop is that if you move a layer closer to a layer that's in the same or close proximity, it will make sure that they are lined up. So I think that's a really neat trick that you can do. That looks good to me. And then we'll select everything and kind of move it down. If you hear all these click clacking, it's my keyboard. I have a mechanical keyboard, and so that's what you're hearing, the clicks. And okay, now we're gonna take these other two layers, just kind of move them off this way so that they look centered, and just the Vine Church maybe a little bit off to the right. And okay, so far this looks good to me. Now the next thing that I did was I brought in our logo. So I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna go to, let me see where I have it. I think I have it right here, Vine Church, and then I have logos, and then green. So as you can see, it's a green circle with a V inside, right? But I'm gonna want this V filled in, so we'll do that right now. I'm just gonna drag it in here first. So we got our logo in here. I'm gonna size it down, and I think that's a little big, so maybe here. That looks good. Okay, so now one thing that I like that I saw on other lower thirds from other churches is that some of the graphics or even some of the text sometimes comes off of, it looks like it's hanging off of what that lower third should be, right? So that's kind of the effect I'm going to go for here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another layer, drag it underneath it because I need to fill this space here. And I'm going to just select the inside. Oh, wrong selection. Let me select the inside of the V. Good. And then turn that off. I'm going to fill it in with white. So now we do the bottom layer. Beautiful. There we go. So that looks good to me. Okay, and then I'm just going to merge these two layers together. So we'll select them and then we'll click merge layer so they become one. Beautiful. Okay, so now that we have the logo there, the next thing that I want to do is I don't want just this green to just look like I just placed the logo there. I want it to still look like it's kind of part of you know, this design. So the way that I'm going to achieve that is I'm going to select the entire logo by clicking right here on this layer, on that layer for that logo. So we'll retitle this and we'll call this logo. So I'm going to put my mouse over this space right here, and I'm going to click Command, and then I'm going to click. So when that happens, it selects the logo. So boom, logo selected. Now I'm going to do filter. Select, modify, expand, and we're going to do 7. I think 7's good. And now what I'm going to do is, as you can see, it's expanded 7 pixels around of the logo. So now I'm going to come back to our lower third BG for background, and I'm going to click on the actual layer. Now with the paint bucket selected, I click G, or you can click right here off to the side, and the same color. It doesn't have to be the same color as before, but let's just stick to it. That color right here, I'm gonna make sure that layer selected, and I'm just gonna click. So what that does is, if I actually turn off all of these layers, you'll see, and also this, and we're just gonna leave this on. Let's turn this off. Boom. So what that does is it creates right here a outline of those pixels, those 7 pixels, you know, extra plus the logo. What we did is we filled it in with that same color. Now you didn't see the blue fill in originally because of course we have all the other layers selected, right? So I'm gonna go make sure this line disappears by doing the same command click here, and then just doing G and just clicking a couple times. It will fill in the layer. So boom, that's what it actually looks like, right? But now once we apply all these layers here, boom, that's our, you know, final result, or close to our final result. So now I'm looking at this and this looks good, right? To me, this looks good. Now, the next thing that we need to do is just organize everything. So as you can see, this layer is just called layer 1, and this I had to click on and off to see what it even was. It gets a little annoying. So make sure you label stuff. I'm gonna label it divider. Boom. Okay, at SJ, Vine Church SJ, this is good. And then we have our logo. So good. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put all the text in a folder called text so that our volunteers know that that is text. Boom. And then logo and divider, and we're just going to put all of this in here and call it, I don't know, I'm going to call it content, so that I know that this is the content on top of the lower third. So now if I select all of this on and off, I can just get rid of the content but the background stays, or I can get rid of the background and leave the content, right? Either way. Boom, beautiful. So now let's compare it. I'm going to put all of this into a folder, and we're going to call it lower third tutorial, so that I know that it was the tutorial one. So now we have this one versus our tutorial one. So it's a little bit different, right? It's not exactly the same. Obviously, I remade it from scratch, so it looks a little different. Here I said follow us on our social, and this one I said follow us on our social media. So this one was a little bit more full. But it can be, you know, whatever you want, whatever you want it to look like, whatever the background looks like. For example, here this background's a little darker than this one and not as vibrant. So that's, you know, just something that you can edit really quick if you wanted to. You know, I could go back over here and change these layers. So this was the, yeah, I can get rid of that, and now it looks a little bit more vibrant, or even just bring it down, you know, a little bit to maybe 13, and then bring this curve down so that it's not so dark. You know, you can just adjust all of these layers later. I can even move, you know, the, I can move this layer so that it's something else. You know, the background looks a little different if I need to adjust it or move it back. You know, you are in complete control of what you want this to look like. And the final step that I would recommend is that you click over here to your screenshots folder, and just kind of put it on, you know, put your screenshot back in a frame and see what it would look like. So here's my dad preaching, and I have our lower third. This is kind of what it would look like when I, you know, put this live on our software, our streaming software. Now let me add my background, my you know, image, and this is what it would look like on top of, you know, my frame. So I think it looks good on both. I think, you know, this, obviously this background is, you know, one solid color. This one, he's in front of the drum set, and, you know, it's another different look. But, you know, this lower third, in my opinion, you know, it looks good on both of these backgrounds. But that's something that you want to check, because if your background, you know, is the same color, for example, as your lower third, then your lower third might disappear in your background, right? So you want to make sure it looks good on whatever, you know, your church background or your church, you know, set looks like, right? So double check that before you export it. So now once we're happy with it, once we're content, turn off your lower thirds and, sorry, turn off your screenshots folder. So now we're just left with this lower third, and I'm going to do Command-Shift-S. So that will save right here. And I'll open up this window. Yes, I'm in church lower thirds, and then we'll call this tutorial I can spell it to tutorial lower third. We'll call it that, and we're gonna save it as a PNG file. So we call this tutorial lower third and PNG, and we're just gonna click save, click OK. And when we go back to our folder on desktop and click lower thirds, you see tutorial lower third. So now when I open that up, you can see that it's just the lower third with no background. So then what you do is you go into your church software, whether you use OBS, we use Ecamm Live, but whatever software you use, and you import this lower third as a layer into whatever software you use, whether it's OBS, Ecamm, you know, whatever you use, import it there, and now you have a beautiful lower third that you can fade in and out. Now in this video, we kind of just covered how to create the lower third, right? We didn't really go over how to animate it. I know a lot of churches have animated lower thirds, but you can also animate this lower third. That's something that I'll cover in another video, and if you're interested in that, then let me know, and I'll be more than happy to make that video. But for now, you have a beautiful lower third right here that you can use at church. You know, this is just our follow us on social media one, but you can also make one, you know, for your pastor. You can make one for, you know, your verses, just a background. And I would recommend that you would match all your lower thirds with the same or similar background so that they kind of look, you know, even throughout. You don't want one that's blue and one that's yellow and one that's purple that just looks completely different. So what I tend to do is I make different shapes, you know, like I just did on this tutorial, and I use the same background. In this case, it would be that abstract background, and I apply it to all the shapes, and then I export each of those shapes as, you know, layers or as PNG images. And now I have a lower third for social media. I have a lower third for, you know, my pastor that we can put text over. I have a lower third for the verse that he reads, and we can put the verse text over that. You know, there's so many things that you can do. And now with all of these techniques and tools, you're ready to make beautiful lower thirds and graphics at your local church. I hope that you took one or two techniques from this video and you can apply them today at your church and take your, you know, graphics to the next level. As always, please remember to comment, rate, and subscribe because it really helps out the channel. And until next time, my name is Abraham from Church Convos, and I will see you soon. Peace.